rise to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, Title V of the Energy Water Bill that's before us today robs Peter to pay Paul. Title V takes funds which were appropriated 2.5 years ago for transportation purposes and moves those funds, part of those funds, to Corps of Engineers in today's Energy Water Appropriations Bill. Title V specifically rescinds all awarded but unobligated high-speed rail dollars from the Recovery and Reinvestment Act and moves those dollars to respond to the unprecedented flooding this spring in many states for work to be done as it is designed and executed by the Corps of Engineers. Effectively, this is a backhanded increase in allocation to the Energy Water Subcommittee for this bill at the expense of transportation purposes. I don't contend or even suggest that the Energy Water Bill is well funded. In fact, the allocations for the Energy Water Subcommittee and for the Transportation and HUD Subcommittee, of which I am the ranking member, are both totally inadequate. But I do object to killing projects in transportation that will create construction jobs in the severely depressed construction industry and provide a valuable transportation alternative in heavily congested corridors among our largest metropolitan areas all over the country. And I do absolutely support making the repairs to flood control systems as quickly as they can be designed and built. That's an obligation. In my 20 years, 10.5 years under Democratic president, 9.5 years under Republican presidents, and under the control in the Congress of either party, because it switched back and forth in those 20 years, we have dealt with natural disasters on a bipartisan basis, on an emergency basis, every single year. Most famously, that includes in September of '05, the Katrina disaster, in which resulted in $15 billion for recovery of New Orleans and the Gulf Coast on an emergency and on a totally bipartisan basis. But this section takes from projects planned, applied for, and awarded, but not yet obligated, and kills those projects. Roughly 6 of the $8 billion appropriated for intercity passenger rail and high-speed rail projects in the Recovery Act are already obligated, and half of those are already in construction. The Recovery Act itself allowed until the 30th of September of 2012, the end of the 12 fiscal year, to obligate those dollars. Of the roughly $2 billion unobligated, 80% of those dollars arise from the single decision just 3 months ago of the governor of Florida to refuse the $1.6 billion previously applied for and awarded for a project to build true high-speed rail on dedicated corridor between Orlando and Tampa. Now, Orlando lies roughly equidistant from Jacksonville, Tampa, and Miami. Those four, Jacksonville, Tampa, Miami, and Orlando, those four are 4 of America's 40 largest metropolitan areas. All have over 1.5 million people. All are growing by between 15 and 30%, and they are among our fastest growing metropolitan areas. They represent a prime example of the opportunity that high-speed rail offers in carefully selected high population corridors around the country to reduce congestion and expedite travel. When that money was refused by Florida, the Federal Rail Administration re-awarded the $1.6 billion of it to projects in other states, including, as examples, in the Northeast Corridor, which carries half of all intercity passenger rail passengers in America every day, nearly $800 million to work in that Northeast Corridor, and that work would bring the speed up to 160 miles per hour in parts of New Jersey, and the work would be done in New York and New Jersey. That for $800 million. And secondly, including in the high-speed corridors based on Chicago
Gentleman's
as their
time
hub.
has expired.
Unanimous consent that I extend for 1 minute.
Is there objection?
Object.
Objection is.
Would you?
Who seeks recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move to strike the last word. And I would like
The
first
gentlelady
to,
is recognized for
and
5
I would like to
minutes.
yield a minute of my 5 minutes to Mr. Olver.
The gentlelady may not yield blocks of time.
I'll just yield to Mr. Olver.
The gentleman is recognized.
Go ahead.
I think you're losing your time.
That's quite all right.
Okay. Secondly, in the high-speed corridors that are based on Chicago as the hub, to go to Detroit, to go to St. Louis, to go to Indianapolis, to go to Milwaukee, for equipment that will allow those high-speed corridors to function better. And thirdly, in projects on the West Coast as well. All of those projects are jeopardized by this provision in this bill. And I yield back.